Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu promising to make Hamas pay for their barbaric assault on Israel. The Israeli death toll now topping 1,300, and at least 27 Americans have been killed. Netanyahu telling the world that there's no difference between Hamas and the most radical Islamic terrorists.
Hamas is ISIS, and just as ISIS was crushed, so too will Hamas be crushed. And Hamas should be treated exactly the way ISIS was treated. They should be spit out from the community of nations. No leader should meet them. No country should harbor them. And those that do should be sanctioned.
Israel continues to hammer Hamas targets in Gaza with precision airstrikes. The Israeli forces promising to root out every single terrorist in response to them butchering innocent men, women, and children. But no matter what Israel does, progressives like AOC will still accuse the country of ethnic cleansing.
Our responsibility is to the stability and the security of the region. That means being able to support, yes, Israel in its defensive capacities, right, in its ability in that context. But it also means that the United States has a responsibility to ensure accountability to human rights, to prevent the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, and to ensure that horrors do not happen in the names of victims who do not want their tragedy used to justify further violence and injustice.
And while the likes of AOC try to claim Israel can't respond to the most gruesome terror attack in its history, the country's president is slapping down a reporter who tried to push the same narrative.
You seem to hold the people of Gaza responsible for not trying to remove
No, well, I'll
Hamas.
tell you.
But let me finish.
Do you hold a missile in your kitchen, in your living room?
Can I ask my question?
A missile that is sent on our head here, and if there will be a siren, it's a missile from that kitchen. With all due respect, if you have a missile in your kitchen and you want to shoot it at me, am I allowed to defend myself? Yes. That's the situation.
Well done. Dana, I want to go to you first, but permission to rant?
Yes.
Okay, so AOC brings up ethnic cleansing. Why does she do that? She's introducing a rhetorical method to prevent Israel from seeking justice from their tormentors. Again, it's enabling the free punch from the perpetrators while applying the stain of the oppressor on the victim. I would like to know from AOC what the proportionate response should be. Maybe she could draw up a handy chart. When Hamas does X, you do 1% of X. I think that would be really, really helpful. You know, when they behead your children, you can write an angry letter to the local paper. What do you think?
And you can march down to the boss's office and complain.
Yes.
Put a little letter in the recommendations box. A couple things. Well, she talks about ethnic cleansing. Well, what do you think Hamas is doing? Hamas literally wants the extinction of the Jewish state.
That's their charter.
That is actually the definition of ethnic cleansing. Also, for the reporter that was asking President Herzog those questions, try doing that in Iran.
Yeah.
Or to Hamas, or to the Egyptians. And speaking of the Egyptians, why isn't anybody in the Arab world willing to take the Gazans who are being told to get out so that they can have safety? Who cares about them? Oh, what about Hamas? Does Hamas care about them? Hamas has not done anything with the money that they've been given to provide electricity or water. Why is that Israel's responsibility? I don't think that is necessary. The other thing is, the thinking is, so a terrorist kills a baby, and in response to that, you try to kill the terrorist, but he's holding his baby in front of him as a human shield. So the study of the laws of war would be helpful from some of these reporters, because Israel is literally fighting for its very existence. Its invulnerability was shattered, and they are going to need the space and time. Just think about it. We are 6 days from babies being beheaded, and already you have the press and Democrats and academia saying, "Oh gosh, maybe we really should. Oh yeah, please, like let's back off."
Yeah. The narrative.
I could think of something else that ends in "off," but I will not say it.
Good for you, Dana. We'll save it for the break. Bill, you spent a lot of time in Israel and the Middle East. It feels like this happens over and over again, where they exploit this David versus Goliath myth that somehow terrorists are David because they're not a nation state, right? And so then, but they can operate independent of any moral norms, which actually makes them Goliath.
We woke up this morning to Benjamin Netanyahu giving what I thought was a pretty stunning press conference. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. Anthony Blinken was there, U.S. Secretary of State. And what Netanyahu said is that Hamas is ISIS, all right, and Hamas must be eliminated. I don't know if Israel can do that. You know, we took out Raqqa in eastern Syria and claimed victory over ISIS, but ISIS still exists today. I'm not sure Israel can do this job. I'm not sure we can do this job. But Anthony Blinken also stepped to the microphone with Netanyahu this morning, and he said, I am Jewish. And let me tell you about my grandparents who fled Russia, former Soviet Union, during the Second World War. Let me tell you about my grandparents who survived the concentration camps. It was a very powerful message. I thought it was Anthony Blinken's strongest moment that we have seen as a public servant for our country. He then went on late today to Amman, Jordan. He's going to go to the UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. Now, we know in a big picture scene that a lot of these leaders want this region to excel economically. And they know they cannot convince international businesses to do business with them if you have fanatics like Hamas underneath the surface who lie in wait for a period of 6 years and make you think that they want peace with you. What we don't know is beneath the surface in these other countries. I don't think the United States, I don't think Israel can wipe this out. I think you need a regional effort, coordinated, with public statements of will, backed by a military response, to try and get some progress here. The other thing I would add is we really don't know where we are in this war as of tonight. You say day 6, Dana? Correct on that. But what happens next? Does Hezbollah act up in the north? We don't know. Does Iran pull another shoot and get more action within Israel? Don't know. You know, there's turmoil within the West Bank and has been for weeks. I don't know what the second chapter is in the story, and no one knows how much longer this war will last.
You know, Judge, Bill brings up this idea of a coordinated effort. We've had 27 Americans killed. There'll probably be more. We've waged war for less. Is it time to consider, you know, what we do? Never mind the, quote, escalation?
You know, Greg, that was exactly where I was going.
Yeah.
But before I get there, I want to make one comment about AOC. AOC, to talk about ethnic cleansing in relation to Palestine. The Jews from the beginning of time have been the subject and the target of ethnic cleansing. I mean, we don't have to go through history to know that that's their target. And as you say, that's the mission. And I also want to say one thing about AOC. You know, she's a political ideologue. What she says is small potatoes. This is a bigger issue. But in 2021, when Congress allocated money for more interceptors for the Iron Dome, who was crying in Congress at the time? She said, I wept at the complete lack of care for human beings being impacted by these decisions. Wept over the fact that Israel had an Iron Dome where they could defend innocent Israelis. Put that aside. Let's talk about the fact that the Arab world is not accepting these Palestinians, all right? Egypt is not accepting them. The Arab world, from the creation of the state of Israel, the nation state in 1948, wanted no part of the Palestinians. What does that tell you? And Hamas does not take their power or their whatever leverage they have with Iran or the other Arab countries to say, you know what, take in these Palestinians. Why? Because they want to use them as leverage. They want to use them to be able to say to the world, look, Israel is killing these Palestinians, all right, who, by the way, have been given notice, we're going to take out Gaza at this point. Now, to the final question. There was a question asked today of Kirby. 27 Americans were killed. That's a very large number, larger than the number of Americans killed by terrorists during the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Larger than the number of Americans killed at the USS Cole, larger than those killed in Benghazi or beheaded by ISIS. and 27 Americans killed. Why is it the posture of the Biden administration to just let Israel handle this job, instead of U.S. forces going in and getting the guys that not only killed Americans, but that are holding them hostage? And I know people, I spoke to a doctor friend of mine who on Sunday was flying in people to Israel. I mean, it's the private sector again, the former government sector, or people who are in the government who are taking this on.
Harold, that's a good question. Welcome back to the table.
Thank you.
Feel free to talk about anything regarding this issue since you haven't been here for 3 days.
A couple things, and I'm glad to be back. As it relates to the Congresswoman from New York, I think you've all said it well. She talked about the framework that the U.S. is committed to ensuring the stability and security of the region. I can think of no other way, no bigger way to secure or to stabilize the region than to do what the Israelis and the Americans are committed to doing, which is to eliminating the terrorist capabilities and infrastructure of Hamas. The Congress, those in Congress, please get a speaker. If it takes Democrats to do it, we need it to ensure that we can provide whatever support is needed. But I would say to those Democrats who are dealing with some Democrats who are saying things that I think are against the notion of providing a framework for security and stability in the Middle East, ignore them and get on with the business of ensuring that America can support Israel in all that it needs to do, too. I hope that MBS and Mr. Netanyahu do not allow this awful, tragic set of events or incident to prevent them from going forward with their plan to chart a new course in the future for freedom and reconciliation and shared growth in the region. This is one of the reasons why I believe this attack happened. And I'm hopeful that you guys won't let that go. In fact, the Congresswoman and others who are being critical in some ways of Israel, this is why it happened, because Israel and MBS were trying to provide a new framework, a sturdier framework for stability and security in the region. Finally, I'm going to give the White House some benefit of the doubt here. I do think, first, they should say we're freezing the funds, the $6 billion that Qatar and them are working on. Say you're freezing it. Because if that's what we're doing, America and the world needs to know that. Two, Judge, you're right. If we need to send more planes to help people evacuate, we should. But I don't think the White House should disclose all of their operational plans. We certainly don't want to give that to those who may be opposed to us, or for that matter, opposed to Americans, and we know who some may be in that region. I'm glad to be able to speak on this. I've been proud to watch this group around this table over the last several days. This has been a unity that I think the country wants, even though there are a few voices out there that in my party and perhaps some in the other party that I think don't speak for what's best in America's interest, or for that matter, the region's interest.
Well said.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.